He shielded an alien child from a Deathworld beast. Days later, her mother's army came for him. The distress beacon cut through Veraca 7's ionized atmosphere like a scream through static. Dane Voss adjusted the frequency on his salvage rig scanner, squinting at the readout through the cracked display of his helmet. 3 days on this toxic moon stripping copper from abandoned mining crawlers. And now this. He could ignore it. Should ignore it. Every second spent chasing ghosts was another second. His air scrubbers worked overtime, filtering sulfur compounds that ate through seals like acid through paper. The beacon pulsed again, weaker this time. "Damn it," Dane muttered, his voice rough from disuse. He hadn't spoken to another living thing in 4 months. The words felt foreign in his mouth. He redirected his rig toward the signal source, massive treads churning through volcanic ash that rose in choking clouds. The beacon originated from a narrow canyon 2 kilometers northeast, wedged between basalt formations that jutted from the surface like broken teeth. Dane's gut tightened. The canyons were razorback territory. 6-legged nightmares that treated starship hull plating like tissue paper. The crashed pod came into view as he crested a ridge. A scary design, unmistakable even mangled. The hull had peeled open like fruit, exposing the interior to an atmosphere that would burn unprotected lungs in minutes. Dane killed the engine and grabbed his emergency kit, moving before thought could catch up with instinct. Something small and cyan blue huddled against the pod's interior bulkhead. Dane's breath caught. A child. Alien, yes, but unmistakably a child. Her skin shimmered with bioluminescent patterns that flickered weakly, and wild blue tendrils that might have been hair spread across her small shoulders in limp tangles. Blood, darker than human blood, almost purple, seeped from lacerations across her torso. She struggled to breathe, her small chest heaving with effort. "Hey," Dane said softly, kneeling. His knees protested, everything protested after weeks in high gravity. "Hey, I've got you." Large amber eyes opened, pupils horizontal like a goat's. She stared at him with the universal fear of a wounded creature confronted by something unknown. Dane moved slowly, pulling the emergency shelter bubble from his pack. The transparent polymer unfolded with a hiss, and he sealed her inside with oxygen canisters from his suit's reserve. Not much, but enough. Maybe. Her eyes tracked him through the membrane, one small hand pressed against the interior surface. The ground trembled. Dane turned as the first razorback emerged from behind an outcropping. Massive didn't cover it. 3 meters at the shoulder, 6 legs built like industrial pistons, charcoal hide covered in overlapping armor plates. The frill around its neck flared, membranes stretching to reveal patterns that pulsed volcanic red, illuminating the creature's broad skull and forward-facing eyes. 2 more appeared on either side, pack hunters, intelligent enough for coordinated tactics. Dane positioned himself between the Alpha and the shelter bubble. His plasma cutter hung heavy in his right hand, modified for cutting through starship bulkheads, not flesh. The charge indicator read 40%, enough for maybe 3 sustained burns before it died. The Alpha charged. Dane threw himself left, feeling the displacement of air as tons of muscle and armor thundered past. He brought the cutter around in a wide arc, the superheated plasma stream catching the creature's flank. It roared, a sound that vibrated through Dane's chest cavity and wheeled with impossible speed for something so massive. The other 2 split, circling, testing defenses, looking for openings. Dane backed toward the shelter bubble, keeping his body between the predators and their prize. His heart hammered against his ribs. Fear tasted like copper on his tongue, mixing with the sulfur that seeped through his helmet's failing seals. Behind him, he heard the child's rapid breathing through the bubble's thin membrane. The Alpha feinted left. Dane tracked the movement, and the razorback on his right lunged. Claws raked across his environmental suit's chest plate, tearing through reinforced fabric and the underlayer beneath. Pain exploded across his ribs. Dane swung the cutter blindly, and the creature retreated with a hiss, red patterns flaring brighter across its frill. Blood ran hot down his side, his suit's breach alarm screamed. The Alpha charged again, and this time Dane stood his ground. Boots planted in volcanic ash, he raised the plasma cutter like a blade. The razorback's jaws opened wide enough to swallow his torso, serrated teeth gleaming. Dane roared, the sound tearing from his chest, and thrust the cutter forward into the creature's open mouth. The Alpha's skull lit from within as plasma burned through soft tissue. It screamed, twisting away, and Dane felt claws tear into his left shoulder. The impact drove him to his knees. His vision grayed at the edges. The child cried out behind him, a high, frightened sound. Dane surged upward, using legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. He swung the cutter in wide arcs, forcing the remaining Razorbacks back step by step. The Alpha retreated, one eye dark and ruined, red patterns pulsing erratically across its frill. The pack followed their leader, disappearing into the toxic fog that rolled across the canyon floor. Dane collapsed across the shelter bubble, his weight pressing against the polymer membrane. The child's small hands pushed back from inside, as if trying to hold him up. His vision tunneled, blood pooled beneath him, mixing with ash. At least he'd saved someone this time. Darkness took him gently. He woke to white light and restraints. Medical bay. His body felt distant, wrapped in numbness that didn't quite cover the deep ache in his shoulder and side. Voices spoke in a language he didn't recognize, melodic and precise. Footsteps approached. A face appeared above him, blue skin, darker than the child's vibrant coloring, smooth and seal-like. Large amber eyes with those same horizontal pupils studied him with clinical detachment. No external nose, just breathing slits along a refined jaw that flared slightly as the alien inhaled. "You are awake," the alien said in accented standard. Male, Dane thought, though he wasn't certain. "I am Dr. Kaur. Your injuries required extensive intervention. You have been unconscious for 3 standard days." Dane tested the restraints. Solid. The kid? "The child is alive because of your actions." Kaur's head tilted. "We are attempting to understand why you took such actions." "Is that a trick question?" The door opened. Dane felt the temperature in the room drop. The woman who entered moved like a weapon being drawn, controlled, precise, radiating authority that needed no announcement. Her skin was the color of deep ocean water, bioluminescent patterns running along her forearms and spine, currently dim and steady. She wore no visible rank insignia, but every other alien in the room straightened. Her amber eyes locked onto Dane with the intensity of someone dissecting an unfamiliar threat. "I am High Commander Esev Korathi," she said, her voice carrying the weight of absolute command. "You will explain your presence on Veraca 7, your mission parameters, and which intelligence network deployed you to that exact location." Dane stared at her. "I was salvaging copper." Unacceptable. No human risks death for an alien child without orders or strategic objective. Something hot and tired rose in Dane's chest. "I didn't think about objectives. I just moved. Because leaving a kid to die isn't something I could live with." Silence stretched between them. Esev's bioluminescent markings flickered once, uncertainty bleeding through iron control before she locked them down. For the first time in 4 years, Dane felt truly seen. Rael Thavik entered the medical bay carrying a data tablet. "Commander, the salvage logs confirm his story. 4 years independent operation, no communications with any faction." Esev studied Dane for another long moment before nodding. "Secured quarters, medical observation." Dane's quarters were small, a bunk that barely fit his frame, a viewport showing Veraca 7 below. He sat testing his shoulder's range of motion when the door chimed and opened without waiting for response. The child from the pod darted inside. She looked healthier now, bioluminescent patterns glowing steady across her cheeks. Her wild blue tendrils reached toward him as she settled beside him on the bunk. "You smell scared," she said in clear standard, small hand resting on his scarred forearm. Dane blinked. "That's direct. My mother says only stupid warriors feel no fear. Brave ones feel it and act anyway." She tilted her head. "Were you scared?" "Terrified. Thought I was going to die." She nodded solemnly. "What are Earth animals like?" The question caught him off guard. Dane found himself describing dogs, their loyalty, and the way they pressed against you when they sensed distress. He told her about horses, their power and gentleness. Words flowed easier than they had in years. "We evolved from ocean hunters," she said, tendrils swaying. "Do you have oceans?" "Yeah, I used to sail with my father. The horizon seems infinite out there, salt and sun on wood." I would like to see that. Footsteps approached. Isev appeared in the doorway, markings flickering when she saw Mira pressed against Dane's side. Mira, you were instructed to remain in medical. But I wanted to thank him. Mira's tendrils drooped. He saved me. Isev stepped inside. She moved to collect her daughter, but paused, watching Mira's relaxed posture, the steady glow of her markings. Something shifted in her expression. 5 minutes, then you return to Dr. Kaur? When Mira finally left, Isev lingered. She has not been this relaxed since the crash. She's a good kid. You do not find her alien? Dane shrugged. She's a kid who got hurt and scared. Rest is details. Isev's markings pulsed before she suppressed the response. She left without another word, but didn't lock the door. The pattern repeated over following days. Isev found reasons to pass through the observation deck when Dane was there, answering his questions about Askari culture. She explained their matriarchal structure, the importance of emotional restraint as civilization's foundation. Doesn't that get exhausting? Dane asked, never showing what you feel. Discipline provides strength. Or maybe isolation. Her markings flickered again. They began discussing tactical problems, and Dane surprised her by sketching modifications to the ship's heat distribution system. His hands moved with unexpected precision for their size. 7% efficiency improvement, she said, reviewing his calculations. Heat flows the same whether you're working on a starship or a mining crawler. Mira became Dane's constant companion when Isev's duties allowed, dragging him to the observation deck to identify constellations. Her tendrils brushed against his arms constantly, exploring texture and warmth. Isev listened from the doorway one evening as Dane described sailing, his voice carrying emotion he didn't hide. When Mira fell asleep against his shoulder, Isev entered quietly. Dane stood to help transfer the sleeping child, and their hands met. Isev's skin felt cool and smooth against his calloused palm. The contact lasted too long. Her markings flared bright before she locked them down, stepping back with Mira cradled against her chest. Thank you, Isev said softly. She paused at the door. We receive orders tomorrow. You will be escorted to the capital for formal debriefing. Something in her tone made Dane's chest tighten. That a problem? I do not know yet. The next day brought emergency drills, alarms shrieked, and crew members rushed past. Dane followed instinct and found a pressure seal failing, automated systems struggling with cascade failure in the environmental controls. It will not hold, a crew member said, backing away as metal groaned. Dane pushed forward, getting his hands on the manual override. He gritted his teeth and pulled, feeling something pop in his shoulder, but the seal ground closed. Emergency systems kicked in, and the alarms died. Rael Tavik appeared moments later. How did you know? Salvagers learn fragile systems. That cascade pattern is usually fatal unless you catch it early. Rael studied him. You saved 17 lives just now. Just noticed a problem. No, you acted without calculation for personal gain. That reflects honor. The crew's attitude shifted after that. Not warm, but respectful. They nodded when he passed, made space in corridors. Isev said nothing directly, but her evaluations of Dane changed tone. They stood together at the observation window during a night watch, watching a nebula rotate. Colors spiraled in patterns that hurt to comprehend. What do you see? Isev asked. Dane considered, chaos and beauty fighting for dominance. I see the same thing when I look at you. Her fingers drifted toward his arm before she caught herself. Something that should not work but refuses to collapse. The coded message arrived while Isev was in her quarters. Dane knew something was wrong when she emerged pale, markings dim to near invisibility. She moved like someone wounded, and he caught her arm. What happened? She pulled away, but not before he felt her trembling. A political matter, not your concern. She withdrew completely after that, refusing to meet his eyes, responding to his questions with cold efficiency. Mira found him in the maintenance tunnels 3 days later, tendrils drooping with distress. Why did my mother stop smiling? Your people smile? Adults say we do not, but I see it. She did it when you were near. Mira's markings pulsed unhappily. Did you hurt her? I don't think so, but something did. He found Esev in her quarters that evening, filling her doorway. "If you want me gone, say it. But don't freeze me out. I've been alone too long to be invisible to someone who sees me." Esev's control shattered. Her markings flared brilliant. Admiral Veron orchestrated Mira's crash. She weakened the beacon deliberately to force me into a marriage alliance, knowing I would sacrifice anything for my daughter's safety. Your presence was the unplanned variable that saved her before the orchestrated rescue could arrive. The words spilled faster, her voice breaking. They used my child as a tactical pawn, and now they watch me, waiting to see if caring for you makes me vulnerable to further manipulation. I do not know how to want something for myself when duty has defined my entire existence. Dane stepped closer, his presence somehow making her feel anchored rather than threatened. Caring isn't weakness. It's what kept me human when I wanted to stop being anything at all. If your government thinks love is tactical error, maybe the problem isn't love. Esev's markings pulsed rapidly, matching her breathing. Dane reached out slowly, giving her time to retreat. His palm came to rest against the bioluminescent line on her forearm, warmth seeping into cool skin. Esev went absolutely still except for the frantic glow beneath his hand that betrayed everything she tried to suppress. "I do not know what this is," she whispered. "Neither do I, but we can figure it out." Her hand covered his, pressing his warmth deeper into her skin, and for the first time in her life, Esev Karathi stopped calculating consequences. Admiral Varon arrived with a ruling council mandate, her pale gray-blue skin and dimmed markings speaking to age and authority. She moved stiffly, favoring old injuries, but her voice carried absolute command. "The human will be transported to the capital immediately." Esev's markings dimmed to near darkness, but she held position. High Commander Karathi retains jurisdiction over... Overruled, this matter requires council oversight. Dane was escorted to a diplomatic shuttle by armed guards, his frame dwarfing them but moving with controlled compliance. He looked back at Esev, and she read the question in his eyes, clearly. "Fight for me." But military discipline held her in place even as something fractured in her chest. Mira broke from her caretakers and wrapped herself around Dane's leg, tendrils clinging desperately. "No, he stays." Dane knelt, his large hands gentle on her small shoulders. "Hey, I'll be okay." "You promised you would not leave." "I didn't promise that, but I promise I'll try to come back." Esev's voice cut through, quiet but absolute. "Mira, release him." The betrayal in Mira's glowing eyes as she obeyed mirrored the fracture spreading through Esev's carefully constructed control. Dane stood, nodded once to Esev, and allowed himself to be led away. The diplomatic facility on the Askari homeworld was sterile and cold. Dane was held in a room with white walls and observation panels that never darkened. Interrogators came in shifts, asking the same questions in different configurations. What was his strategic objective? Which faction deployed him? What intelligence was he tasked to gather? "I was salvaging," Dane repeated for the 20th time. "Alone, no orders, no faction." "Your physiological responses indicate stress patterns inconsistent with truthful testimony." "Maybe I'm stressed because you've been asking me the same questions for 3 days." They studied his musculature with clinical detachment, took tissue samples, measured his reaction times. Dr. Kaur appeared on the 4th day, assigned to monitor Dane's health during the process. He ran his scanner with professional efficiency, but his markings flickered with discomfort. "Your cortisol levels are dangerous," Kaur said quietly. "This interrogation methodology is producing trauma rather than intelligence." Glad someone noticed. Kaur hesitated, then leaned closer. "High Commander Karathi has been summoned before the ruling council. They question whether her attachment to you compromises her command fitness." Dane's chest tightened. "She's being punished for helping me?" "She is being evaluated for emotional decision-making." Kaur's voice dropped further. "Admiral Veron argues that the Dominion's strength lies in transcending such attachments, that humans represent a destabilizing influence." "What do you think?" Kaur's markings pulsed uncertain patterns. "I think watching you shield a child you did not know challenged many of my assumptions about what strength means." Esev stood before the ruling council in full ceremonial armor, her markings locked into perfect stillness. Admiral Varone addressed the assembled members with cold precision. High Commander Korathi prioritized a single human's welfare over security protocols. She exhibits emotional decision-making that the Ascari evolved beyond centuries ago. The human demonstrates potential value as a cultural bridge, Esev countered. His actions on Veraca 7 prove humans possess moral frameworks we do not fully understand. Dismissing him as mere scavenger ignores strategic opportunity. Strategic opportunity? Varon's markings pulsed dismissively. Or personal attachment clouding judgment. Your own crew reports uncharacteristic emotional displays. Rael Tavik submitted his deposition from the back of the chamber. The human's technical expertise improved our efficiency. His physical capabilities saved 17 lives during system failure. His value extends beyond the initial rescue. Value is irrelevant if it destabilizes command structure. Varone turned to Esev. Tell the council truthfully, has this human affected your emotional state in ways that compromise your objectivity? Esev's markings betrayed her before she could answer, pulsing rapid patterns she couldn't suppress. The silence that followed felt damning. Dane pieced together the situation from overheard conversations and Kor's careful comments. They were forcing Esev to choose between her position and any connection to him. He asked Kor to deliver a message. Tell her I'll cooperate fully with intelligence debriefing. Accept permanent exile from a scary space, whatever removes the pressure on her. Kor's markings flickered with something that might have been respect. She has been arguing before the council that you represent everything the Dominion should aspire to understand about humanity. Courage without calculation, loyalty without hierarchy. That just makes it worse for her, doesn't it? Perhaps, or perhaps it reveals truths the Dominion needs to hear. Mira infiltrated the facility using maintenance tunnels Dane had once described, her small size letting her navigate spaces designed for larger beings. She appeared in his holding room with disheveled hair and fierce determination. You have to come back, she announced. My mother is not sleeping, her markings barely glow. She is in love even if Ascari do not use that word the same way. Dane pulled her into a hug, feeling her small frame tremble. How did you even get here? The same way you would. I paid attention. Her tendrils reached up to touch his face. She looks at you like you are the answer to a question she did not know she was asking. Are you going to fight for her? I'm trying not to make things worse. Leaving makes things worse. Staying and fighting makes things hard but worth it. She pulled back, eyes serious beyond her years. That is what you taught me on Veraca 7. Esev confronted Varone in private chambers after the council session, armed with evidence Rael had helped her compile. You orchestrated Mira's crash, weakened the beacon deliberately, all to force a political marriage. Varone's expression remained cold. I acted for the Dominion's stability. Your resistance to necessary alliances threatened diplomatic frameworks. You endangered my child. I created circumstances where your maternal instinct would override political stubbornness. The human's intervention was unplanned, unfortunate. Varone stepped closer, but it revealed something far more dangerous. His existence proves that emotional vulnerability and physical power are not mutually exclusive, that threatens our entire cultural foundation. Ev's markings flared bright. You fear what he represents. I fear what acknowledging him represents. If humans combine strength with feeling, if compassion can coexist with capability, then our civilization's premise that emotional restraint equals advancement collapses. We cannot allow that. Even if the premise is false. Especially then, truth matters less than stability. Esev returned to her quarters and accessed secure communications. She transmitted classified intelligence about the conspiracy directly to Dane, along with detailed facility security maps. Her personal message was brief. I understand now what you meant about caring being strength. I refuse to let the Dominion's fear dictate whether I protect someone who matters, even if the cost is everything I built my identity around. Dr. Kor disabled the monitoring system in Dane's room for exactly 17 minutes. Some oaths to healing supersede oaths to governments. Dane memorized the intelligence and deleted the evidence. He had no intention of escaping. Instead, he used Essev's maps to access the Council's secure archives, his strength letting him force open access panels and navigate maintenance corridors. He retrieved documented orders, communications showing Mira's deliberate endangerment, suppressed research about human capabilities. He transmitted everything to Rael Thavik with instructions to release it fleet-wide if anything happened to Essev or himself, a deadman's switch that forced truth into light. Alarms triggered as security discovered his infiltration. Dane surrendered immediately, kneeling with hands visible as guards surrounded him. He bet that once the conspiracy was exposed, the Dominion's honor system would protect him. He was right. The ruling council fractured as evidence spread through civilian networks. Younger officers and scholars argued that Veron's manipulation represented exactly the emotional calculation the Dominion claimed to have transcended. Essev was recalled, expecting court-martial, and found instead a coalition demanding Veron's removal. Essev testified about Dane's actions, infiltrating secure facilities not to escape but to expose corruption. His choices demonstrate moral clarity we have lost in our obsession with hierarchy and control. He proves that feeling and strength are not opposites but complements. Dane was released and escorted back to Essev's ship by rail. She risked everything for you. If you hurt her, there are airlock accidents that leave no records. Dane's mouth quirked. I've got no intention of hurting her, but I have no idea how to navigate a relationship with someone who thinks emotions are tactical liabilities. Rael's markings flickered with something like amusement. Start by being exactly what you were on Veraca 7, stubborn, foolish, and willing to bleed for what matters. Dane found Essev in her quarters reviewing damage assessments as if nothing had changed, but her markings glowed brighter than he'd ever seen, betraying the emotional chaos beneath her controlled exterior. They stood facing each other across the small room. I meant what I said in my message, Dane told her. I would have accepted exile to protect you, but I'm grateful you didn't let me make that choice. I'm tired of running from things that scare me. Essev closed the distance between them, her hands framing his face with careful precision. Her cool blue skin felt electric against his warmth, markings pulsing rapid patterns. Askari do not experience love the way humans describe it. Our bonding is neurochemical, pragmatic, designed for partnership rather than passion. But everything I feel when I look at you defies those parameters. I do not have language to name it, except that I choose you. Dane kissed her with desperate reverence, his scarred hands cradling her face as if she were something precious despite knowing she could break him in combat. Essev responded with intensity that surprised them both, her cool skin warming beneath his touch as bioluminescent patterns raced across her body in cascading waves that lit the darkened room. They learned each other through touch and breath and tentative exploration of two species, discovering that desire transcends biology when trust is absolute. Her smooth blue skin against his scarred warmth, her disciplined strength meeting his protective gentleness, her sensory adaptations reading his elevated heartbeat and temperature shifts as clearly as he read her glowing emotional display. Afterward, they lay tangled together, Essev tracing the scars on Dane's shoulder and side. I sometimes dream about the razorback tearing you apart before I could reach you. Dane captured her hand and pressed it over his heart, letting her feel the steady rhythm. Still here, still breathing, still choosing you every day if you'll have me. Her markings pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat, as if their bodies had learned to speak a language neither species had words for yet. Mira discovered them the next morning, Dane's arm wrapped protectively around Essev's smaller frame. She announced with perfect 7-year-old timing, I knew you were bonded. Adults are obvious when they think they are being subtle. Essev tried to maintain dignity while explaining appropriate boundaries, but Dane's deep laugh broke her composure, and she found herself smiling. Mira immediately pointed it out. See, you smile now when Dane is near. I told you adults smile. The ruling council offered Essev a choice: accept a diplomatic position as liaison to human territories, essentially creating a framework for human-Askari relations, or face charges for protocol breaches. She accepted but negotiated terms, allowing Dane to work as civilian consultant. "You are establishing precedent," the council chair noted. "Other partnerships will follow this framework." "Then we should make it a good one," Esev replied. Admiral Varone was stripped of rank and position, a spectacular fall that reverberated through the Dominion and forced broader conversation about whether emotional restraint had become emotional suppression. Younger Ascari began questioning whether their culture's strength lay in control or in choosing when to be vulnerable. Rael Tavik took command of Esev's former ship with her recommendation. Dr. Kaur joined their diplomatic mission to study human Ascari biological compatibility. His scientific curiosity now paired with genuine respect for both species' complexities. "Your healing rate continues to fascinate me," Kaur told Dane during a routine medical scan. "But I am more interested in how your emotional openness affects those around you. Asev's crew reports improved morale and problem-solving when you are present. Maybe they just like having someone around who doesn't know all the protocols. Or perhaps vulnerability creates safety for others to be vulnerable, an interesting hypothesis." Their new posting was a joint human Ascari station at the border territories. Dane stood with Esev on the observation deck watching ships from both species navigate the shared space with cautious optimism. His arm rested around her shoulders in a gesture that would have been unthinkable months ago. "Do you regret it?" he asked. "Giving up your command?" "I did not give it up. I traded one kind of command for another." Her hand covered his where it rested on her shoulder. "This frightens me more than combat ever did. Because I cannot control outcomes through discipline and planning. Because caring for you means accepting that you could be hurt, and I might not be able to prevent it." Dane pulled her closer. "Welcome to being human. We're terrified all the time. We just do things anyway." Mira was enrolled in an experimental school program integrating human and Ascari children. She was already organizing her classmates with benevolent tyranny that suggested she inherited her mother's command instincts. Her wild blue hair made her instantly recognizable among the darker-hued adult Ascari. She brought Dane to the school one afternoon to talk about Earth animals. Human children clustered around his large frame with fearless curiosity, while Ascari children held back initially, then gradually moved closer when they saw he was gentle despite his size. One small Ascari boy asked, "Is it true you fought a razorback with just a broken tool?" "I fought to protect someone who needed protecting. The tool was just what I had available." "But you are not a warrior." "No, but you don't have to be a warrior to be brave. You just have to care more about protecting someone else than protecting yourself." The teacher, an older human woman, caught Dane afterward. "That was perfect. These kids need to see that strength comes in different forms." Esev watched the interaction from the doorway, her markings glowing steady and bright. When Dane noticed her, she gestured him over. They walked the station corridors together, hands linked in a way that still drew stares, but fewer than before. "Mira asked me yesterday, what happens if you decide you want to return to Earth?" Esev said quietly. "What did you tell her?" "That I do not know, that humans and Ascari experience partnership differently, that I am uncertain how to ask you to stay when I cannot promise forever in ways your species understands." Dane stopped walking, turning to face her fully. "I spent 4 years alone in space, running from the fact that I failed people I cared about, colonies I couldn't save, friends I couldn't protect. I was done caring because caring hurt too much." He cupped her face, thumbs tracing the bioluminescent lines along her cheekbones. "Then I found a scared kid who needed help, and I couldn't walk away. And then I found you, someone who terrifies me because caring about you means I could lose you and it would break me all over again. But here's the thing I figured out. Being broken by loss is still better than never having something worth losing." Esev's markings pulsed rapidly, emotions bleeding through. "That is not logical." "No, it's human, and maybe it's Ascari too when you let yourself feel it." "I do feel it. I feel everything when I am with you. It is overwhelming. Good overwhelming or bad overwhelming. Both, terrifying and necessary in equal measure." They stood together watching stars shift through the viewport, two people from different species learning that love doesn't require the same biology, just the willingness to be vulnerable and the courage to stay when it gets hard. Later that night, Esev woke from nightmares of Veraca 7, of arriving too late and finding Mira's body broken in volcanic ash. Dane was there immediately, his large frame solid and warm beside her. "She's safe," he murmured. "You both are. How do you manage it? The fear?" "I don't manage it. I just accept that caring means being scared and do it anyway." He pressed his lips to her temple. "We're building something fragile here, both of us, but fragile things are worth protecting." Esev's fingers threaded through his, her cool blue hand against his warm, scarred palm. "My people believe strength comes from emotional control. Yours believe it comes from emotional expression. Perhaps the truth is somewhere between. Or maybe strength is just choosing to show up for each other even when we're terrified." That is a very human perspective. "You got a better one?" Her markings pulsed with what he'd learned to recognize as contentment. "No, I find I do not." They fell asleep, tangled together while outside their window. Two civilizations learned that strength and vulnerability, logic and emotion, discipline and passion were not opposites but complementary forces that could build something stronger than either alone. And in the morning, they would wake and continue the difficult, terrifying, essential work of choosing each other again. 'Cause that was what love meant across any species. Not the absence of fear, but the decision to stay despite it.